Hello, everyone. It's the day after Thursday, which means it's Friday, which means it's Weekender time. There's some logic for you. We have a jam-packed show for you this week, stuff full of some of the greatest gaming news from across the industry that's caught our eyes over the past 7 days. We even have an indie of the week with an unpronounceable name, so that's a winner. On top of all of that, we have a copy of the latest painting guide from Ammo to give away as a prize. This is How to Paint Miniatures for Wargames by Ruben Torregosa. If you want to be in with a chance to win, then you just need to be a subscriber to the channel and pop a comment below. And if you do all the other social media doobly-doos, that's also awesome. Otherwise, sit back, put your feet up, grab a drink, because your weekend starts now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekender. I'm joined this week by the delectable Ben and the fantastic Free for the last time. For big news, Free, like Dick Whittington, is going off to London to seek her fortune and leaving us all behind.
She has a cat and everything as well, so this is
perfectly Dick Whittington-esque.
It is.
Yeah. So Free, you're leaving us.
I am indeed. I'm going off into my next adventure and sadly having to go outside into the big world again, which is could be all the fun with all of the people. Not seeing you guys behind the screen and everything, which has been amazing. I'm going to miss you guys very, very much, and I am heartbroken, to say the least. So let's get into some good tabletop stuff, and I promise I won't break down throughout the show. I mean, I can try. I'll give it a go.
Just get progressively more and more drunk.
I mean, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it means you'll just hear me endlessly talking for an entire episode now. So there we go. There won't even be any breaks. You'll have to suffer me the entire time. So there we go.
Well, that's what we expect anyway, Ben.
Well, I suppose
for those of you paying attention at the start, we do have a giveaway this week, and it's the lovely How to Paint Miniatures for Wargames. It's a long title. From Ammo. Now, due to a garbled subspace transmission, we received 2 copies, one in Spanish, which means I've actually got a second one to give away, but it will be in Spanish. If you don't mind getting a copy in Spanish, and when it arrives in Spanish, you can't complain that you can't read it, because I'm making it very clear it will be in Spanish. But just put in the comments below, when you're coming to win, I would like the Spanish copy. And I will look for people who say that. And if we've got any Spanish viewers, you've probably in with a better chance of winning than all the other people, because it will be 100% in Spanish. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I did a little review of it earlier this week, because I bought my own copy before.
A very good book as well.
Before it arrived. And it's all about the wonderful world of not high quality painting, although you can paint to high quality, and the book shows that, but specifically about how you get your stuff onto the tabletop for large mass battle games or miniature skirmish games in general. So it goes through all your sort of color theory, different steps you can take, and how they sort of break down depending on how much time you want to spend on them. So, you've got that quality to speed ratio really throughout it, and then some absolutely stonking master classes by 4.
It's very cool.
By Ruben and 5 other artists who do some absolutely stunning stuff, each in a very different style as well, which is nice, because you can see people using an airbrush and enamel washes, and if that's not your bag, then other people are in there just doing sort of heavy dry brushing or wet blending or layering or whatever it happens to be, or in the case of this, absolutely fantastic command stand, all the freehand work in Christendom. So yeah, if I said at the start of the show, if you want to be in with a chance to win that delightful book or a copy in Spanish, then just comment below and we shall troll through the entries and find a winner or 2, one of which will be Spanish. Now, kicking things off properly then, we have a Indie of the Week, which everybody pronounces wrong, and I will continue to pronounce wrong, but I will tell you its right name right at the very start because I'm a generous god like that. So we're going to be taking a look at Mierce Miniatures, or for everybody else in the world, Mierce.
Mierce Miniatures.
Which is a range of fantasy miniatures that has to be seen to be believed. It's kind of incredible. It's based around this world, which is a fantastical version of Northern Europe in, I'm going to say it's like 650 AD. So 7th century. So it's just when the cusp of the sort of Viking expansion and migration is starting to happen, and a lot of weirdness is going on. As you can see, there's some slight changes from our world. For example, there's a great ice sheet that goes to Far Thule, which is good because Thule doesn't get mentioned enough, I feel. Since that, I want to say it was a Greek explorer wrote about Thule being an island past the Isles of Albion, way to the north, which obviously some people go, Atlantis, well, or not. Could be the Faroe Islands. Could be anything. It could be Tory.
Could be nothing.
Could be nothing at all. He may have made it all up. Yeah. Atlantia. Again, why not? Right down there. And you can see the various nations marked off. Each of these equates more or less to a faction within Darklands, which is the warband scaled skirmish game that it runs for. And you can see there Albion, Anglican, Atlantes, Brythone, Bryzani, Erin, Formeric, Friesens, Inferni, Jutes, Kurska, Chthonans, Norse, Visigoths, Vras, Yessians, Sellswords, and Special Editions. So if you can knock off the last two,
Saxon.
There's a lot going on
That's
there.
a lot.
Yeah.
Where do you begin?
Yeah. I will say I got an email recently from them saying that if you're after the second edition printed book, they've only got a small amount of copies left and they won't be getting a reprint done until November. So if you feel the urge to jump on this one,
the urge to splurge,
you may want to go for that sooner rather than later. However, I will preface that with a big however. There is a digital copy, which is a fifth of the price. I think it's like a tenner rather than 50 quid. So it may be a better way to go. I've not seen the second edition. I've seen the first edition, and the first edition required a lot of polish. It was very dense. So I'm not sure how the second edition compares to that, because there was like 50 different active action states that you could take within your turn, and 50 is a lot of actions to remember that you can do in a game. So hopefully that's been pared right back. But that aside, when you're into the wonderful world of Darklands, ignore Bane Legions, which is just the monsters from Darklands again. It's not a separate game. It's just a different place you can sort of go through and look at them all. You do have a kind of, what's the best way to put this? There is no good way to put this. This site requires you to do a lot of digging. So, for example, if you are unaware of the Darklands universe, then you're not going to know that the Jutes,
where you're clicking,
are actually the faction that has the undead in it. So you just have to go clicking and go through and start, finding stuff and making notes.
So it's a great way to learn the lore, in all fairness. At least you figure out who does what and where does where. A nice bit of way to do your research, because you'll figure it out.
All of them are sort of bundly deals, and then depending on the faction, you may find it's full of monsters, has no monsters, or is nothing, but monsters. But there are.
That's what they've last kickstarted, basically. I think, really. So.
well, yeah. But some of them are more human centric than others.
Yeah,
kind of like that. I'll pull up a couple of these, but there's some interesting stuff with Mierce. First off, you do get the little blurb about who they are. You also get the likes of who's done it, concept sculpture,
which is always nice to see. Yeah,
and when you hit the pronunciation, it actually breaks it down. So the amount of times where you're looking at something going, how do you pronounce that? And bear in mind, there's a big chunk of Norse and Irish names in this. It's probably very handy. Likewise, Mierce in and of itself. I presumably the amount of people calling it Mierce led them to go, you know what, we're going to add pronunciation to every page.
Yeah, I know.
That's
just hammer it home.
how I like to imagine that happened. Scaling wise, these are big.
They are big.
These are big figures. Yeah. They're sort of.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't even call them 32 mil. They're more 40 mil figures. Which means if you're attempting to add the humans to already existing factions, you may run into slight issues. But if you are getting it for Darklands, it doesn't matter.
That is a massive horse.
That's a big horse.
I think that's it's a 70 mil.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got
need a ladder to climb up onto that.
I mean, it's proper Shire horse style.
Yeah.
Run and jump.
That's what you need in life, though, because I've heard recently of a lot of people being told they can't ride horses because they're too heavy.
Oh.
Not necessarily fat, because one bloke is
heavy.
6'8". And even though he's not fat, he still is too big for the horses on these sort of horse riding things.
Is this a takedown or is this an interesting mount? What way are you going to put this? Is he about to kill him or is he going to
definitely an interesting mount, 100%.
It'd be a stealth kill. Yeah.
Oh, they'll hear you coming. I would put little tiny horseshoes on the tips of each of those, so people can hear it coming across the battlefield at you because you
backing across the. Yeah. It's one of the things that I really quite like about the. I'm just going to say Mierce. The Mierce range is that it's got such diversity in its collection. I mean, because obviously when it first came out, everyone was like, "Oh, so it's kind of like just like a fantasy Dark Age game, really, right?" And then they kind of went to the next level and threw in a whole bunch of really creepy, weird stuff and big bugs and all that kind of thing. But I think it kind of latches onto like a lot of the aesthetic that people love from the likes of Conan and stuff, and really plays with that. And obviously Conan kind of has like those little tiny sort of historical things in it and stuff as well. So it's a really neat little kind of aesthetic to latch onto for the game, I think, as well. So,
we couldn't go through everything on this website because they have been going for a while. And
the undead are very nice, though.
The undead are stonkingly gorgeous. Yeah. I may have picked up 10 of these.
I remember we showed some of these to Lloyd at one point, and he was absolutely besotted, as he is wont to be with the undead.
I got 2 packs of those recently.
Wow!
To use as Whites in my Kings of War. Because nothing screams "I'm coming for you" like those. A human comes up to about groin height on these things.
Nice.
So no way. Monstrous infantry.
Wow.
I will say, I'm probably going to do an unboxing on them since I bought them and I've got them sitting here. The fingers on some of these are separate. So you have to put in separate skeletal fingers. So if anybody's heard swearing over the past couple of days, that's because I've been putting individual skeletal fingers on. So bear that in mind. But it does show you when you look at the actual models, some of them you can buy separate component parts as well,
right?
Which is something a lot of companies don't do, which is good because you can go, oh, that's great. Oh, it comes separate. I can just buy that head or chest or whatever it happens to be for £2, which is really nice. Unlike, say, having undead that just look like dead humans who haven't gone to a bat armorer, like Lloyd says, is really nice. Moving away from everybody's favourite, the fun dead, we'll have a quick look at the Irish, shall we?
Yeah.
It's interesting that they've tried to, even though it is a fantasy Dark Age setting, they have played on the national themes to a certain extent, be it from mythology or poetry or just sort of an idea of how people get on, which means you get things like the Welsh are very connected to dragons, so they have a whole range of dragon type people.
Very cool.
The Irish are very earthly, connected to sort of nature and druidism, which means you get stonking things like the tree men.
which is eating minotaurs, satyr things.
He looks so happy. Look at his little smile on his num. Just give him a little bib.
He is not the happiest of those tree men, by the way. There are some incredibly happy ones. Happy we look at.
I really like how they offer a lot of models in both resin and in metal. That's a nice option to have.
Yeah, some people don't like working in certain materials. I don't mind either. For the big monsters, it's good to have them in resin, I feel, because they're less likely to require a ton of pinning on them. There's one of our warp spas and rastrid fellas looking particularly happy with himself. Very Slonya-esque.
Yeah.
Or Cuchulainn, which is where it comes from, or where we hear about it. And look at that. A terrible Christian coming in here to take away all our peat bog monsters. We want our peat bog monsters.
The range, the collection that I've always loved. We'll have a look at after these ones. Yeah. Is the Bjornikans, like the sub faction. Yes, amazing bears.
They are amazing. Obviously, being a McCabe, seeing a load of people rocking D-Lances all over the place just amuses me. And if you don't know why that amuses me, then just go off and spend a productive half hour learning the history of the McCabe's people. You'll thank me for it. Male and female, there's more of our
big boy
warp spasm types, big ogres, twisted into unusual positions. Less a fan of these ogres. They've got that
quite Malifaux
Warhammery.
Yeah,
they do look quite Malifaux looking.
Strangely enough, But,
I'd much rather have that.
Yeah.
Or this guy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Twisting himself double. I just have the bleached hair.
So cyan style.
Well, the ancient Irish used to spike it with lime to keep it upright and bleach it. So it should be properly spiky. Here's my happiest of all. Oh no, he's so small.
Oh, tiny.
What about you? Are you better? You're better.
Yeah.
Oh, they're great. They're awesome.
It was a toss-up. I needed forest shamblers, and it was a toss-up between these and the peat beasts.
Okay.
And as much as I really liked these, I ended up going for the peat beasts because I'll show you the peat beasts.
There's so many models.
There really are a lot, aren't they?
The peat beasts are essentially mini versions of this guy, and I have this guy.
That's very cool.
I'm using him as the Wilt Daddy in my Kings of War Shambler list. So it was like, well, I've already got him to be a big Forest Shambler, so I may as well get the little mini versions to be the Forest Shamblers. But anyway, so the
I really like how uneven all of their limbs are. I really like here's a part of a tree, here's a part of a tree, here's a part of a tree. It's so rustic looking.
Some are rock, some are stumps. Yeah.
It's not one's the same in any way.
Weird bog monsters.
Yeah. They feel very Del Toro in their look.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's another.
Oh wow!
There's another satire being eaten, and it'll teach him, harden him in many respects. Right.
Wow.
Leaving the Irish behind, moving away from the green grass of home. Where are we off to?
It's the Angleston. Angleston. Is that how you say their name?
Let's say that is how you sell it.
And then just go straight to the Bjornikans.
down deeper, down, skip all the humans. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, screw the humans. There they are.
But you see humans all the time, and I'm sure if you like them, you'll find more humans. I'll open the stag. There's a human. I'm going to go down a bit further because I know there's more human or more werebears. In fact, there should be a whole fleet of them. Look, I know you like your
werewolves. Oh my god.
There are a lot of models, aren't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, it's a big range, and like
been around for a while as well now.
What they do is they'll go to Kickstarter for a specific faction and then use it to increase the range, and then within a couple of weeks / months of the Kickstarter being fulfilled, they're all on the website. So I think there's one of their Kickstarters is due to fulfill over the next month or so, and they're planning on having that updated onto the website in November. So it's constantly rolling. It's using Kickstarter like it's supposed to be used. You use it to fund the expansion of ranges that you wouldn't have the cash for ordinarily. It's really nice. Look at that. Big elk.
It's really cool how they do the mountain and unmountain version of the models as well. It's nice to have the option.
I mean, how cool is that?
That's very cool.
Leaping over some
parkour.
parkour, leaping over some poor dead fen beast.
Woof. But the thing that I was really drawn to with these is because the guy, I love that the guy in the bottom right looks just like a cuddly, fluffy teddy bear that's actually gone a little bit strange.
Yeah,
the thing that's really nice about this range is that I think they've managed to nail the proportions of were creatures, because there are so many rangers out there that are like, oh, we'll give the werewolf a big head because we've just basically sculpted onto a normal body. And you're like, no, you need to play around with it a little bit.
Make them bigger. And it helps that they have gone for a larger scale. In fact, they started at a smaller scale. They started more at 32 mil.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then that range has been replaced. So if you bought stuff off them 15 years ago when they were sort of kicking off, you may find that the humans there are smaller than the current humans by a fair bit. But the net benefit of that is you've now got some absolutely stonking big monsters. I will say they do have a stonking price tag attached to them as well, which people probably won't be noticing as
they're not cheap.
But they run regular sales. So at the moment, I think they've got a hero sale running, where you get like discounts on certain heroes. But because I bought those undead recently and the peat bog monsters, and I bought them because they were doing a large monster sale where it was a 2-for-1. And at that price, you're going, well, they're equivalent of every other sort of company's resins. So why would I not?
Yeah.
Really, I'm saving money. Because if I bought them outside,
and supporting someone particularly in a way as well. So yeah. But
bargain. Best 160 quid I spent this week. This week.
What's really quite nice about a bunch of especially the wear stuff, is how we've said how it's really nice to have like mounted and unmounted.
Yeah.
For a lot of the wear warriors, for want of a better word, they do the unchanged and the changed versions of them.
Yeah.
So you can play around with like your normal hero, and they'd be like beast mode. Rah!
Well, yeah. And like I said, I don't know if that action list has been reduced any in second edition, but it's entirely possible that is a thing, because I know in Confrontation you had creatures that were like the Warp Spasm Irish, because they were the Warp Spasm Irish for the Celts, and they would start in human form, and then when they got wounded, they would warp out into the bigger form, and you'd swap their model. There's your Animals of Farthing Wood. They're really nice wolves.
They're lovely
really
wolves.
Good wolves, yeah.
And they're running as well, one up on the crew.
Oh, yeah.
Movement on the wall.
Expensive wolves, but very nice wolves. So.
Yeah, but I mean...
that's quite a nice pack.
That's 2 trips of wolves from my Northern Alliance, I'm just saying. And if you get them in metal, really, it's a third off.
Well, that's
practically,
true.
Really.
Yeah.
So at that point, why would I not?
Yeah.
No.
See how this works. I really need to stay away from our Indies of the Week.
I really now want to make a army that is werewolves leading wolves, or werebears leading bears. Because you just dry brush everything and you're done.
Have a look at some of the Welsh, who obviously lean massively into the dragon nature of the Welsh.
Very cool.
Like evil Arthur. Great.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Mordred, I guess, but yeah. One of them.
Why not both?
Well, one of them really. Because obviously that could be Arthur on the left and Mordred on the right with his wingtail. Yeah. But I remember walking past the Mierce booth at Salute the first time, and they had one of their. Yeah, they had one of their original dragons, and it was already massive. So when considering that was more on the 32-ish, adding a couple more inches in when it comes to the monsters is clearly, obviously, you can see there, made them absolutely stonkingly huge.
Well, again, anybody who's had the misfortune of watching me do an unboxing, I have a little steel ruler that I always measure things, because it always annoys me whenever I see a review and I don't know how big it is.
What scale is it?
Exactly. Yeah. They do that on this website. So if I close this,
nice.
It will tell you, there you go, approximate height to the eye, and then to the top. So 203 millimeters to eye level, 344 millimeters to the top of the wing. So 35 centimeters, so over a foot, 14 inches tall, if people want to use old money. So that gives you an idea. 35 centimeters or 14 inches. Bam. That you can see why that is on all the flags for Wales. Cadwallader. Help. Oh, Lord.
Tell you what's quite interesting. Whenever you write stories about Mierce miniatures, you end up with red everywhere because no words are ever understood by any program you're ever using. So,
and again, because the Welsh are very fond of their dragonkin friends, they have a whole rake of monstrous dragonkin.
So cool.
Should have told John.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Just thinking at the time. I didn't. And it's not like we never communicate with him again.
Might be editing this. He'll find
just
out.
Never know. Yeah. I mean, they are absolutely
very skepsis.
Oh yeah.
Very skepsis-y.
Yeah, skepsis-y.
But yeah, it's
they're very pretty.
It's a stunning range, it has to be said.
And this is in no way touching the sides when it comes to
no, not in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So when you say you've got the Irish, the Welsh, where else around is there to say? Because if you do know a way around, what else have we got the equivalent of?
The Norse are very interesting because they're not the kind of Norse that you'd expect, which I think is quite interesting. So, yeah.
So your Norse, obviously you have
Griffin, very
sort of standard.
Big
fella with
your
massive
classic
axe.
Chaps.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Spectacle helm and away you go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's left-handed.
Is he lefty?
He's got a sword on the left.
A sinister fellow.
Top.
Oh,
that is huge.
That is another absolutely majestic monster.
I just saw him on there, just in the back. Really quietly.
I think what's really nice about that is that they've taken like ravens and like crows and that kind of stuff is very sort of iconic within Viking mythology and all that kind of stuff. And you wouldn't necessarily have thought of mounting a Viking on a massive sort of hipper raven.
Yeah.
But they have done, rather than going down the route of like a big wolf or something like that, which I think is really nice. So they've taken something from
very cool
mythology and folklore and done some really, really interesting with it. Yeah. And this is the stuff that is like very out there. Well, yeah, because like, with Norse mythology, you've got trolls and ogres and all sorts of strange things that live in the mountains. And they've really gone to town on making that a big element of the force when it comes to the monstrous side of things.
And it's certainly, as far as trolls go, it's a very different take on them, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
Like you say, lots of
crow chocobo.
Yep.
Crocobo.
Crocobo, yeah.
What's this?
And then, look at that. I mean, what the hell?
That's a grin troll.
Yeah.
That's very tapir looking, but not really. Wow, interesting.
I assume that burrows through the earth and then bursts out the side of a mountain.
Just look burrowy, yeah.
Like Tremors.
Like a tremor, yeah, like Tremors, yeah.
Like Tremor 3, was it? The above-ground ones.
Third week in a row, Tremors.
Ass blasters.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Norse are, like you say, not the typical, or I suppose it's not even not the typical, because if you look at the Norse Eddas and the like, it probably is more typical. They haven't they haven't taken the, I suppose,
the classic pop culture
the
feel.
easy
reference,
stereotypical references that we are so familiar with now. It's not just everybody's a werebear or on a wolf. They've lent into more of the mythological side from Scandinavia. Like more trolls, a lot more trolls.
More trolls.
I know a lot of people who come to Mierce and they'll pick up the odd miniature to throw into their armies. They'll go to Mierce and they'll be like, right, so I've got all the rank and file that I need, but I want like an iconic monster or I want a really awesome leader figure. And they'll come and look at this as their sort of entry point. Because in most cases, heroes are larger than life and all that kind of thing. So if the scale's a little bit different, well, it just doesn't necessarily matter, to be honest. So
I want that for my Night Stalkers as a
Oh, yeah. Imagine that in purple and blue.
I've seen so many people use it because it also has no eyes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Absolutely redonkulous. I love it. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Fomorian, no, not much in there. Is it the Fomorak? That's where I'm after. These are a bit more...
are the wild stuff.
Oh, these are your ice back down the bottom, I presume, in the snow. Oh.
And again,
gorgeous colours.
Look. Yeah, very
amphibian-like that was.
Very chaosy for people of a Warhammer ilk.
Nice.
Again, this is spun out from Irish mythology of the sea raiders. So you end up with unusual looking things.
Oh my God, I've never seen that one before. Wow.
Oh.
No.
That's specifically why I was trying to find this one. I knew he lurked in here somewhere. Look, it's a Starspawn of Cthulhu. Yay!
He won't just bend your mind, he'll kill you too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Rawr. No. It's like eating a bit of jelly off the plate without a spoon. That's how it goes. But yeah,
I reckon that's the Foley art for. Yeah.
Oh, I imagine so. 100%.
Must be.
100%.
Whoa.
I mean,
I love that it's kind of just a little bit weird and alien. Yeah. And it kind of throws that sort of strange, as you say, Lovecraftian sort of Cthulhu-esque thing into the mix as well, which is always nice to see. Yeah,
the Fomorians are those satires we've seen earlier. So again, sort of your beast money feel. Ooh, Herdstone. The mummy.
Everyone likes a Herdstone.
Okay.
Well, not shopping.
As things start getting added to the basket.
Yeah. Well, we've all seen how this works. They do sort of more risque.
Nice.
Conan-esque, I suppose.
It's huge as well.
It's a hell of a kitty cat. But that is a brief touch on what's in here.
The whole show would be about Mierce if we we didn't stop ourselves. Yeah.
The Atlanteans are Greek myth.
Very cool.
If you're after a Ray Harryhausen-esque Telos model for your tabletop, then that is very much doable. And the whole
you know that amphora jar that you're
this is what I'm just thinking. Because mine weren't right. The ones that I got weren't right. So I'm looking at these now and I'm like, oh.
Well, they're certainly heroic and awesome enough to go.
Thanks for the consideration.
There you go. So if you're interested, check out Mierce Miniatures. You'll find it if you Google Mierce. And there is an absolute wealth of stuff to get into. I will have to pick up the Darklands rules at some point just to see exactly how second edition has changed. And
I want to know what scale of forces you use for it now, actually, because I always saw it as like it being like a skirmish style game, but I'd be interested to know if anyone's played
first edition was Warband-ish.
Right.
So you'd be playing with, 20, 30 figures aside.
Okay.
You're not having to sit there and go, well, I'm going to be playing with 200 odd models at X pounds per model. This is going to, beggar me. So you can do relatively small, but then less construction was surreal in first edition because you have like an amount of gold, but then you also have feudal ranks essentially. So to unlock certain monsters, you have to have
someone of a certain rank.
Yeah, and then to get them, you have to have so many, dungers below them to support them. It's almost like a building up your tribe. So it was a way to stop people just sort of spamming big things. So you have to take like a standard core of an army. But again, first edition, so that may change. But anyway, let us know what you think below. We're going to have a quick swish, and when we come back, take a look at the news.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
Okay, we're back for the news, and we're going to be kicking things off with a bit more fantasy. Big announcement from Mantic Games. Actually, a couple of big announcements from Mantic Games. First was Rob, who many people will know as the Goblin King,
good old Rob
has gone off to university, which means Ronnie is once again in charge of deciding who gets to know what, when, and how. So over the past couple of days since Rob has left, he's just been blowing everything out of the water as of when he can. First big news thing was the Big Red Book. So every year, what they tend to do at Mantic is, with the help of the Rules Committee, they rebalance the lists via the Clash of Kings supplement, expansion, whatever you want to call it. And the big news for this year is there's not going to be a separate Clash of Kings book. Currently, there is the rules, Uncharted Empires that contains 14 odd additional army lists, Halpi's Rift campaign with additional rules and magic and stuff, last year's Clash of Kings with additional rules, 2 new armies, new magic and stuff. And then this would have brought up to like 5 books. So instead, what they've done is, for the price of the rules by themselves, 35 quid, they're putting together the Big Red Book, which will contain all of that, plus this year's new rules changes and amendments, without any of the lore or fluff. So it'll be essentially a one-stop shop. But nice. It contains all the errata, all the FAQs that have come out since the book was released in 2018. So this, if people are just starting, this is the most up-to-date, and you don't have to worry about picking up a rule book and then going and finding the FAQs and errata and amending stuff. Everything's in there. For people who like the lore and the fluff and the like, of which there was quite a lot in those books. Mantic are actually going to be putting it out on the internet for free, so you can just sit there and read through the backstory, how the world is changing and expanding. It's really, really good, because there's a lot in that book. Looking on my shelf, they've really gone to town on it, and with every supplement or expansion, they've added to that as well. So it's been sort of like an onion. Well, actually, no, not like an onion. Like the diseased secretions of a dying mollusk. New layers have been formed on this little pearl with each expansion, with each book, so it just gets bigger and bigger until you've got a beautiful, huge, giant pearl at the end of it.
The Panathor Pearl.
The Panathor Pearl. Yep. So that's massive news. The fact that this is coming. Along with this, for the kids, there will also be an app.
Yep.
Which I believe is something technological that you like swipe on your screen and stuff, which will contain that lore and the like as well. Wonderful. But also all the rules and sort of list building mechanics, although they said they're still going to be working with Easy Army, which is good, because I have Easy Army and it's one of the few things I can work out how to use. So I'm not going to be moving away from it, because I'm a creature of habit. But it means you've got these 2 different ways that you can get the information you need, and also means you don't have to pick up another book and carry umpteen books with you, depending on what list you're going to be playing. Say that with one caveat. There are 27 lists in the book. There are 28 lists currently. One of the lists is not going to be in the book, and that's because they announced this week that Twilight Kin, or the Twiglets, yeah, as everybody knows them. Twiglets, they start off as sort of bad elves in first edition and became sort of like badderer elves in second, with a beta list. Third edition, they pushed them on further and made them integrated, symbiotic, parasitic with the Night Stalkers. They want to expand on that and make that more of a distinction. So when you're playing with Twiglets, you're not just playing with a dark elf faction. They want them to be very Panathor-esque. So what's going to happen is they'll still be on Easy Army. They'll still be downloadable off the website for the rules. So if you have them, you can keep playing them. But they're not going to be in this book because they don't want to invalidate it. In March, they're going to take those rules down, end of March. And then next year, they're going to get a big release with a new range of miniatures, including hard plastics and the like. And they give us this little teaser of whatever that is, with a flesh terror Butcher.
A liquor of some kind.
Well, I know what the butcher is. I don't know what the dark elf who's attached to it is. So,
don't ever talk to me or my son ever again.
No.
For people who do have big Twiglet-kin armies, obviously you're still going to have the list that is available to still run whatever you've currently got. But they've essentially said, if you were thinking about buying an army, don't. We are going to be changing it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Which is nice to be given like a year's heads up to not pour money into something that may change drastically. They did also say if you've picked up any of the Mantic models in the past, they will stay or they'll have an equivalent. And if you've built your army around units that are things like the Spearmen or that sort of thing that have come out, then you know that they're still going to be viable in some form. So your list may be invalidated or may just change its name a bit. But that was big news for the Twiglets, which is...
That's very cool.
Yeah. Also in the video, which I plucked out and screenshotted for the forum, the Ogres are getting a hard plastic kit. Yeah. Now, currently the Ogres are Restic, as the 4,000 points sitting behind me that I'm currently painting up from the very first Kings of War Kickstarter. I will finish them before the new ones come out. So later on this year, there'll be hard plastic Ogres that should make all the different types. So shooters, boomers, warriors, siegebreakers have an add-on pack currently. I assume that will be retired in favor of the new style hard plastics. Also, these haven't skipped leg day, which is a shame because I quite like
clearly
the
not.
I really like the gorilla look of the tiny legs, although I seem to be an outlier on that.
I thought they were kind of cool. They were the army that I was like, if I play Kings of War, I will play Ogres because I just love their aesthetic. Yeah, because it was kind of like Warcrafty orky as well, which was quite nice.
Which I still love them bits, which is why I'm very much in favor of finishing off my army. As well as the regiment of Ogres, they've also announced that there'll be a hard plastic chariot. And because the Ogres use the same chariot model as the Goblins and the Orcs fight wagon, it means all of those will be covered. So they'll be doing crews for all of them. So there'll be a whole chunk of stuff coming for the Ogres. They've already got really nice resins, like the Berserker Bullies and the Boomer Sergeants. So, and the Matriarch, gosh, she's gorgeous. So yeah, Ogre's getting a massive reworking later on this year, and the Riftforged Orcs are getting a Storm Giant. So based on their giant with resin upgrade pack, like they've done for the Frost Giant for the Northern Alliance, this massive wind blasting, lightning bolt hurling lunatic will be coming out in a few months' time for people with the Riftforged.
Forget Stormcast. How about Storm-racked Orcs instead?
Storm-racked Orcs, yeah. It's a brave new world. So every day this week they've been putting out news on the blog, like we've seen with the Twiglet King, but also a big community member, Kyle, who ended up joining Mantic in America. He's part of Mantic's trade sales there. He has his own channel, Mastercrafted, and he's going to be putting out videos as well over the next couple of weeks. The book launches on the 24th of October. So I think once a week you'll get a little snippet about what's going to be in the new book, some of the changes, because the book itself isn't just the rules and the army lists that you already have, but there's also going to be several new ways to play Kings of War. So there's going to be a massive, I want all my toys on the table,
legendary battle
style thing called Legendary, and then there's also going to be sub 1,000 point games, ambush, where currently you have specific restrictions on when you list build, which are easier for some forces. Sub 1,000 points, so the likes of halflings and goblins and that sort of thing can obviously spam little 70-point unlocks, but bigger things like ogres or the delightful patterns of Basileia can't, because some of the things are restricted. So I'm assuming there'll be some changes to list building for that. But it means if you pick up any of the army sets, so either the regular or mega army, you'll be able to just start playing the ambush
straight away,
and they will play 100% out of the box. So you can then build from there. And as you've seen at the end there's also the updated artifacts and magic cards as well, which are quite cute. And I tucked them in the back of my units so I know who's got what, because otherwise I forget that I bought a Blade of Slashing and forget to reroll. So yeah,
I am on the Well, I'm stepping onto the platform, and I've got 1 foot hovering in the air over the Kings of War hype train at the moment, because the old world is taking so long to come out, and that was the kind of like rank and flank game that I was waiting for. But I'm like, well, I've always loved Kings of War.
A more cynical
and I've played it.
Would say that they announced that with their logo the month that Mantic released 3rd edition, simply to try and take some of the wind out of their sails. Because they've literally,
potentially.
There was like 2 years of nothing, then some concept art of Kislevites, and then nothing.
Polar bears. Yeah. But now I'm like, but I could just play Kings of War. I could just build a new army of Kings of War models, and I could just dive in and have fun with it. So I have been looking on their web store. I am really, I was, because I love ogres, and I think those ogres look amazing.
I think those new ones are going to be spanking.
But I'm also thinking Rift-forged orcs would just be so cool to paint, I think. And I did love all the stuff that they were showing off over the last little while.
I'm currently planning on picking up the 2-player starter set with the Rift-forged and Halflings, the Storm in the Shires.
Because
it's got a mini campaign and I can't get it anywhere else. But then also I can then add those to 2 armies, because I've already got Halflings, and I don't technically have orcs. Technically, I don't have any. So I've got 40 odd black orcs still on their sprues from when I pre-ordered them from Games Workshop. How many years ago?
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. They're still in the box that I ordered them from. So if I add those into my Rift-forged, I could get a fairly chunky orc army on the tabletop.
And also with that new book and the new ambush rules, I would imagine you could play Storm in the Shire at ambush level.
Oh yeah,
and more or less be sort of happy as Larry, I guess.
Oh God, yeah.
So
why would I not be? I quite like those.
Well, it's Kings of War anyway, so of course you're happy.
Fish bite hooks, isn't that what they say? Well, I like the I like the fact that Mantic have pumped the brakes on Clash of Kings this year and just went, you know what, rather than doing another book for the sake of doing another book, why not condense everything we've got? And a relatively reasonable price as well, £35. So Clash of Kings last year was 25 and the rule book is 35. So for 35 quid, you're getting
it's not like you're going to have to buy entirely new armies or anything for it.
No, they're just rebalances and tweaks. But yeah,
Kings of War.
Lots of stuff to keep eyes on if you're interested in Kings of War. If you're interested in Kings of War, just keep coming back here. If there's anything,
Jerry will talk about it at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't stop me. You may try, but you will fail. Right, moving away from the wonderful world of Kings of War,
less important news, obviously. Yes, so the folks at Mantic Games have put together a list of releases that are coming out for September. This is sort of much wanted, slightly delayed as well because of everything else that's been happening in the world. But these are landing this month for everyone to pick up. They should be available later on in the month for you to get some hands on. That's all that good stuff. But anyway, so yes. There's a new faction set that will be familiar to a lot of folks who have dived into Elia Chronicles. So this is the Corsairs faction set. It comes with the name characters. So you've got Jay, Mac, Jib, Noala, and Uxie as well.
Is Uxie the pirate Aztec axolotl at the back?
I hope so.
I think that is the case, yes.
That's amazing.
You also have that chap who looks like he's a human crab. Why would you not like that? But so these are the characters that you will have known from Elia Chronicles and Raptor Claw Island and all that kind of thing as part of their last Kickstarters and stuff. They're coming as their own kind of like little faction for you to play as on the tabletop, which is really fun. And you could use them as the main characters, or you could mix them in with a whole bunch of other stuff if you wanted to do some tinkering and all that good stuff. If you want to go down a different route.
Fish pistol.
I just saw that.
Yes, I'm very. One of the things that you can't say about Drowned Earth is that it's not unique. It is possibly one of the coolest and sort of like cool, funky indie sci-fi games out there. We have played some very, very good games with this. So if you want to check those out, make sure to check out the Game Hub. I'll actually put the link down in the notes so you can go and check out some of our games we played with that in the past. But beyond the Corsairs, we also have some of my favorite things, and that's dinosaurs. Because dinosaurs are amazing. Why would you not have dinosaurs in your games? So we're getting this massive Ceratops, which is going to be smashing things apart on the tabletop. They can be used within a faction, if you so desire. But they also have rules to sort of be wandering monsters, essentially, in your games. So if you want to be, fighting things out on the tabletop between two war bands, and then suddenly you're like, boom, Ceratops, and it starts charging in and making everything a mess, and you can play around with that. There's also the very adorable, and it's actually labeled as adorable on the web store, baby Ceratops, which is equally cute.
And that's how the fight starts.
Exactly.
That gets in there, yeah.
Unfortunately, someone accidentally shoots the baby Ceratops and it's wounded, and the mother's like, I'm going to wreck you, and charges in.
So you're terrible. I would automatically assume that's your target. You want one for your gang. You need to get them when they're young, separate them from the pack, and then raise them as your own.
Yes.
And at that point, Mum gets very annoyed that you're taking the steel child.
We've all seen Jurassic Park, Jerry. We know how that is.
Yeah.
It's not well.
In a big pile of poo. There's also the Dilophosaurs as well that you can see there. So kind of think like little tiny creepy dinosaurs that are going to hunt you down and kill you. These are going to be thrown into your games. Again, they can be taken within factions if you really want to, but I love the idea of them kind of like scampering around within the jungle worlds of the Drowned Earth, hunting down people that stray away from the path, or perhaps go into the long grass. Never go into the long grass.
Never go into the grass.
And that leads us on to something else that hides in the long grass, and that's the Utahraptors as well. So they're going to be thrown into the mix. Again, folks will be familiar with these if they picked up Raptorclaw Island as part of the last Kickstarter and for Alaya Chronicles in general. But you can also now use these in your Drowned Earth games. And if this hasn't made you think, ooh, maybe I should learn a little bit more about Drowned Earth, then I don't know what will, because these are amazing. They've also got this extras and bits kit kind of thing as well. So if you're wanting to do a little bit of customization and kit bashing, they have a series of different heads and weapons and accessories and all that kind of things. Yes, and that is
the Green Goblin.
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe for Gladiator.
Yeah.
I'll get all that.
The Spaniard, yeah. So he is also I like to think that because this is kind of like post-apocalyptic Earth, he's stolen that from a museum or something. Yeah.
I used to own one of those.
Did you?
Yeah. There was a couple of those in the Spatum sword.
Cool.
Yeah.
Were you entertained, Jerry?
I was very entertained.
But yes, those are your releases coming up for the Drowned Earth for this month. As I say, you can go and pre-order them right now, but they'll be available later on, fully at retail towards the end of the month as well. So make sure to go and pick those up and check out those games, The Drowned Earth, because it's a very, very fun sci-fi game. Yeah. And there's more coming in the future. So
there is
more coming for Drowned Earth in the future anyway.
More coming for Drowned Earth, and then there's the Ulaya Chronicles, which is like a board game type affair that has standees, but you can also replace the standees with miniatures.
With all the minis? Yeah.
I believe James from Olmec is going to try and get across to film some stuff about the Ulaya Chronicles and possibly more Drowned Earth stuff with us later on this year. So keep an eye out, because it's a very, very interesting idea for post-apocalyptic, where eventually humanity has to pick itself back up, and this is the result: dinosaurs.
Horizon Zero Dawn basically looked at Drowned Earth and went, "We'll use their ideas." So there we go.
Happy days. Right. Sticking on the idea of adventure board games free.
So I was strolling around on my local games website and I come across a Modifius title that I actually haven't seen on pre-order anywhere else. And it got me really, really excited, because that means that the Elder Scrolls Skyrim adventure board game is coming out, and it is out to pre-order in mass retail. So honestly, I just remember this going up to crowdfunding. I feel like that was it. It's been a year since this has been up.
Oh, I didn't realise that one.
It's been a whole year. So there was this time last year where it was up. And if you have poured hours upon hours in Tamriel, in Skyrim itself on a digital format, it seems like this board game is going to be delivering some kind of similar experience. So you can solo, you can play with up to 3 other players, and it promises an overarching experience of Tamriel. So it's got a lengthy campaign in it, there's battles, you're coming up against the likes of dragons and monsters, and you've also got the most important thing, the side quest after side quest to get distracted by and not finish the game because you're buried into too many side quests. So that is present as well. So it's placing players 25 years before Skyrim, and you're watching the world evolve through the integration of the Dragonborn throughout the story. So As I said, it's across 2 campaigns and there's 3 chapters to each. And there are different pathways that you can take in the world. As I said, side quest is the bane of my life. I just want to collect them all and do them all. So I can imagine this is going to be a nightmare, because they have said that it's got hundreds of hours worth of gameplay on the table. And I do think a lot of that does count for the additional quests you have as well. So you get a say on what choices you're going to make, and you're going to equip yourself with different skills of familiar races. So you've got the Altma, the Donma, the Imperial, the Khajiit, Nord, and Orisma. And you create and build a completely unique character, and you put it in the story. So you add your weapons, your armor, your spells, and you go off into the world and into your campaign. So as well, the other thing that I get distracted by, you can hunt for loot too. So that's up there. You've got to go on the loot hunt. There is a few expansions that are coming out as well to pre-order if you really want to go in hard to Skyrim on the tabletop. There's a From the Ashes expansion and the Dawnguard one. So this will take players that know the campaign quite well. You've got to take down a dragon as well, because who wouldn't want to? You've also got another expansion that extends the player count as well. So at the moment, it is up to 1 to 4 players, but you can expand it to 5 to 8 as well. So if you all want to go on an adventure,
so you're never playing another board game ever again.
If you ever want to get distracted with loads of people, you can. And you've also got a miniatures upgrade pack as well, and that will give you 32mm miniatures to add into your
replacing
game.
some of the counters and stuff in the game. Is that right?
Yeah. So I find this one quite interesting, because I find when I get a video game IP that comes over to the tabletop, it's usually just the same game, but here's some board game mechanics. But this actually does add an additional story of what happened prior to that. So I just feel like it's a bit of loyalty towards Skyrim fans that can go elsewhere, learn a bit more, and take it as an overarching thing, really. But really cool. And if you are a fan of Skyrim, be sure to check it out, because it does seem quite close to the video game franchise, especially the need to get distracted in one way, shape or form.
Well, I do like the fact that I haven't played any Elder Scrolls since Morrowind on the Xbox, which maybe a few years ago.
Encased by cliff racers, realizing that you have bad encumbrance.
Yeah.
And then dying in a corner. Yeah.
And it's that sort of grindiness. I like the story behind it, but it was a slog to get there. And I like the idea of not having to fight with the mechanics of playing a game to actually experience the storyline. Because if you're not happy to sit there and grind in front of a TV screen for hours on end, and I don't know, the modern Skyrims are more like Witcher, where it's not just
they're still really grindy.
But you actually have more.
You have to swing your sword.
You have to swing your sword and stuff. Whereas before it was just like I'll just bop. I'll just keep bopping.
Bashing.
That I found gets in the way of the game because I don't enjoy that. So being able to actually sit down and go through, and you can still go off into your side quests and all the rest, but you're not going to suddenly lose your place in the game because you chose the wrong time to press X and you've accidentally crouched.
Yes.
Got lamped upside of the head instead. So, I don't mind if it in some ways is just the game experience on the tabletop with a new story, because I haven't really got into the old stories.
I think they've approached it in the right way. I think they've done it. I think they've not making it all about the Dragonborn and making it about playing as the Blades. So you're playing as characters that don't necessarily have any background, essentially, and you're kind of telling your own story before all the events of that, meaning you can really play around with the storyline and the choices and the narrative, because it has to get to that one point eventually. But I really like that they've, sort of gone with the idea of it's like a little sandbox for you to play in for maybe a couple of hours on a weekend or something. And, doing each of those individual chapters, which hopefully, have a slightly shorter play time, and then going, cool, well, we'll come back next week and play the next bit of this campaign. Yeah, that's really cool. It's very cool.
I wonder if you can spam the side quests to level up, because isn't that the thing that everybody does? They don't do the main quest line until they're already max, and then they just
and then breeze through it. That's the way to do it.
That's what I did. So
that would fry my mind. But anyway, time will tell. But if you're interested in about the old Skyrim, then check out Morrowind, Elder Scrolls 3 on the Xbox.
The adventure board game Skyrim, that one coming. Yeah,
any of that.
A very, very long title.
It
What's up next then, Free?
Okay, so we're going from fantasy to the undead. So recently, we've seen Sam and Dean come to Zombicide. We've seen The Boys come to Zombicide. We've had Batman as of recent. We've had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Everybody's in Zombicide, apparently. So, but now, if you do want a simpler way to get into Zombicide, CMON have released a new spin-off title, or they're set to release a new spin-off title. It's a flip and write mechanic, and you get the chance to kind of meet wave after wave of zombies and stack yourself out, and it's called Zombicide Gear Up. So it looks like quite a nice quick fire title if you want some casual play. So it's for up to 6 players, and you're going to be taking the role of survivors as per usual, and you've got to cooperate to get out to work to ensure that you have survived. So as I said, it's wave after wave. You'll pick your survivor that's stacked up with damage and weapons, and you can breeze through if you want with different level difficulties, or you can have an absolute whirlwind of challenge. So you'll be given a series of cards, and you're going to lay out a grid in front of you. And in these cards, you've got the likes of zombies, activations, different paths forwards for where the survivor's got to go. So you're going to be logging the progress on your dashboards in front of you, the little pen and the dry erase marker that you see there. So each turn will be a new card turned over, and it will get progressively worse as you go forward. So more zombies upon spawn the further you go, so more waves incoming, and you'll be upgrading as you go. And there is an abomination on the loose as well, which makes it even more worse, and you're going to be coming up against bosses and mini bosses, and you're going to need to smash through some pretty fierce enemies, and you will lose if too much damage is taken. So if you don't, you're out. You are done. Goodbye.
I want to fight the zombie pyramid.
The zombie pyramid. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? You just knock down. Who would you go for? What one?
Just one of the
bottom right. Yeah.
Take out one of the bottom ones.
Yeah. So there is solo mode as well, which I found quite nice. So you can utilise the different survivors as allies and use them as companions to go forward as well. So you don't need to rely on people to be there. So they do say it is coming soon. On the CMON website, they haven't got a particular date of when it's coming, but they have been releasing this as of recently. So hopefully it's soon. Hopefully we do see it. Apparently it only takes about 30 minutes to play, which is half of how long it takes to play a game of Zombicide as well. So it's a nice, for me, I see this as a really nice casual Zombicide experience without having, the bathroom, the painter, the mailman, and the Teenage Ninja Turtles involved in the whole game. So it's really, really lovely to just see a bit stripped back, give people a chance to get involved in the whole Zombicide franchise with something a little bit more simpler that doesn't eat up all your time to play.
I've also never heard of a flip and write. I've heard of a roll and write.
Flip and write, yeah.
Very interested in the concept of. I assume it's you flip cards over and then write things on your card.
Yeah, so. You just by the sound of it, that is how it's going. By the sounds of it, you flip the card and you log the progress, as it were.
Okay,
pen on the dashboard. So quite cool concept. As I said, it's only quite a small little game, but it's Zombicide reaching off into new territories, which I'm really up for. There you go.
So it's Tetris.
Right.
So you've got a specific thing to cover, and you're flipping the Tetris card to cover, and presumably you need to fill in all of the
very cool.
That's cool.
Tetris blanks around the runner before it's actually dead, or at least hit these. They seem to each have spots on them. So your concrete sword,
nice.
obviously, you can turn around that. So that's how you flip.
Very, very cool.
In which case, where's our? Need to skip on then and see the zombie pyramid, because we all need to.
Where are they? We do.
On page 17, apparently.
Okay. Zombie pyramid. Are they cheerleaders? Oh,
Yay.
Oh, there you go. A bit. They are cheerleaders. Yeah. Fantastic. Or gymnasts. Could be any. Yeah. Bottom right.
Attacks all survivors.
Zombie elephant. Oh, dear.
Zombie fun.
Yeah,
that
zombie fun.
Well, I think that's kind of cool. I mean, obviously, the Zombicide franchise is very well known, so it makes sense for them to be doing something else that will kind of get people into the idea of what Zombicide is. And, anything that can be played in half an hour or something at a convention and stuff is pretty damn good. So I'll definitely be looking to give that a go, I think. Very nice.
Yeah. Cool. Where are we off to next?
So we're going to be looking at something that is coming in the very near future. In fact, it will be coming next month. So this is a new set from the folks at Archon. This is going to be the retail release of their Dungeons and Lasers Townsfolk set. Now, when I saw this and I saw those images on the front, I was like, oh, cool. Right. You get like 10 models or something, right? And then I read that little thing in the corner that said 62 miniatures.
Easy.
So, yes. Yeah. 62 NPCs that could be used in skirmish games, role-playing games, however you wanted to approach it. They have packed out the sprues here with all sorts of bits and all that kind of thing. So you can assemble the miniatures in the right way if you wanted to do so. Or you could go to town with the kit bashing when it comes to this stuff. Because I reckon you could have a lot of fun with this, building up characters and all sorts of different things for use in your games. You get all the kind of stuff that you'd imagine. So you get kind of like your town guard, your merchants, your nobles. You also get mounted town guard on the back of horses, which I think is really cool. If anyone's playing, games like Rangers of Shadow Deep or, anything that requires you to throw fantasy NPCs into your gameplay, this is basically going to be the box that you pick up, I think.
Very cool.
Everything is very generically fantasy in a way, but with like a little bit of a fantasy, you've got a little edge of historical, but then lots of fantasy at the same time. You have a Ratman assassin, because of course you do. They have really put together a very impressive kit. And I know people who have got this through the Kickstarters that they've done in the past little while have really, really liked this. You also get this incredibly impressive set of bases that even if you didn't want to use it for your NPCs, these are perfectly good for anybody who wants to base anything for their heroes in skirmish games or role-playing games. Why bother making the NPCs look nice when you can make your heroes look good? That's what I say. But yes, they have done proper like cobbled streets, the inside of taverns, all those different kind of things. So yeah,
somebody's arms.
Awesome stuff. Somebody's arms.
Handy.
There is a trap door about them. Very good.
It's all right.
I just got that. There we go.
Oh no! Oh, that's amazing. I'm trying to work out where the hands go. Are they part of the townsfolk? Or
I'd like to
I think they're for sticking out of some grates.
That's what I was looking for. I was trying to see if there was any specific little hole or whatever that would allow you to easily.
Oh, there's a little third one at the top, the one that you got at the top of the minute next to it. Do you think there's some hands to be able to put out of that grate there?
You could
left there.
This one here. Yeah.
Potentially.
So,
the sprues are the same though, because I was about to go over the second one and realised it was all more the same. But that is a tightly packed sprue.
It is very much so.
As is this one.
And it's one of those things where, everyone's really diving into their role-playing games nowadays, and a lot of people want lots of things that they can show off to their friends as a dungeon master. Like, look at the amazing tabletops that I've built and all that kind of stuff. I think this solves a lot of those issues, especially if you bring it in alongside the actual Dungeons and Lasers terrain, because, that deals with all the actual sort of landscapes that you're playing on. Pick up these, stick them in the same time. Boom, Bob's your uncle done. Really? So, yeah, very cool.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, you wouldn't use them for RPGs because
you'd be playing it wrong. So.
They are compatible with 5G.
Theatre of the mind all the way.
I quite like the fact that the town guard look very similar to the armor that's on the Microsoft, or not Microsoft, what do you call them? MicroArts Discworld stuff.
Yes, it does actually. Yeah, so you could use them as the Nightwatch.
I could use them as the Daywatch. I've got the Nightwatch. I need chaff to be killed.
Something to throw at the invisible dragon. Yeah,
something to throw, as you say, at the invisible dragon. Discuss. Yeah. Right, sticking with fantasy.
Yes,
but going into a more grim.
So Warhammer Quest Curse City, the game that is very much the on and off girlfriend of Games Workshop's collection, is getting an expansion. This came out of absolutely nowhere last week, but the first expansion, as I said, there will be more apparently, is called Nightwars, and it carries on from where the main story ended. Spoilers if you've not finished it, but I'm about to, the set is based around anyway. So spoilers, you beat Radukar.
Wow.
Who would have thought it, right? The big bad, you have to beat him. And so there's a little bit of a power vacuum that has opened up in the city of Ulfenkarn. Filling that gap are 3 vampires. So you've got Annika, Kritza, and Carmilla. You may recognize these vampires because they came out when the Soulblight Gravelords came out a couple of years ago. It's almost as if these were meant to be in Curse City, but they couldn't be because of reasons. So, there we go. So yes, so you'll be going up against Annika, Kritza, and Carmilla. And in the same fashion as the regular game of Curse City, you'll be fighting against their lieutenants before finally going off on a decapitation mission and trying to take down the vampire proper. So it's going to add a whole host of campaign play into the mix for Curse City if you manage to get through the original campaign at this moment. You'll also be able to go up against Radukar the Beast, which everyone has also seen. That's going to be like the big bad, I reckon. Probably it's going to come in at the very end. And there's also going to be new creatures in there like Fellbats from the release for the Soulblight Gravelords. Now, interestingly, Nightwars is not a miniatures-based expansion in so much as when you buy the expansion, you get the cardboard and the cards, and the rules, obviously, but you do not get the miniatures. You'll have to buy the miniatures for Annika, Kritza, and Carmilla, as well as the Fellblats and Radukar the Beast separately. Thankfully, they are readily available as plastic kits. It does mean that things are somewhat costly, but if you're already a Soulblight Gravelords player, then maybe you already have these in your collection, in which case, fantastic, slip them in and away you go. But yes, just so you're aware, the expansion is coming, but you will have to buy all the extra things on top of it if you want to. The way I see approaching this, maybe, you get the Nightwars box, you choose one of the vampires that you're going to go after and just buy that one, and then play out that section of the campaign before moving on to dealing with the other ones or something, and just fiddle the rules a little bit just to make sure that it's a little bit easier on your wallet. But yeah, Warhammer Quest Curse City, the game that no one thought would ever come back to life, has been resurrected properly with a full expansion and everything. And I will say, you can probably find a copy of the game, the main game, in local stores. I know there are 2 in my local store. So if you're interested in picking up Warhammer Quest, make sure to go and see if you can find it. I was going to say, because
it was a mare for people to pick up the first time round.
It was because I was very, very lucky. So
wasn't sure whether or not they reprinted the main game.
So the main game obviously had its initial launch, and then it was gone. And then they did a made for order period where you could get your hands on it, and a bunch of retailers also picked up a bunch of them, so they'd have them in stock. Which is why I think you're very likely to find it in game stores as opposed to seeing it in online, for example. Right. So you can still get hold of the game. I'm not sure if it's actually on general release. I assume it probably will be by the time Nightwars comes out,
selling the expansion.
So, yeah. Without that game would be weird, but
yeah, you would like to think that people would still have access to the game behind it. So I imagine it will probably come back, although it may just be another made to order
sort of period.
Potentially.
But yeah, if you're a Warhammer Quest Curse City fan, watch out for that. I know I've played the game. I've played it a couple of times now. I really enjoy it. It's just a bit of a shame that it's that it had so many problems as it did. But there we go. So yeah, a new expansion coming out for Nightwars.
Right.
Curse City.
We have one more bit of GW news.
Yes, we do.
And I'm assuming this is a little going away present for free.
Maybe, yeah. So we've talked about this before in a weekend a couple of weeks past, but the big pre-orders for the Middle-earth strategy battle game are going to be available very soon. So from this weekend, from the 10th of September, up until 8 a.m. BST, although by that time it won't be BST, it'll be GMT, probably. Oh, no, wait, is it October where it changes?
October.
Okay. So in that case then, it's okay. So 8 a.m. BST on the 26th of September, 2022, you'll be able to pre-order the Battle of Osgiliath set. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but yes. So this is the pre-order period for this, which is extended a little bit like we've seen in the past for some of the other box sets and Indomitus and all that kind of thing, where you will be guaranteed, if you order during that period, to get the game before Christmas. That doesn't just apply to Games Workshop. That also applies to store.ontabletop.com. So if you order from us, there will be stock, as it were, for you to get your hands on the game. That car was very excited about it. So you will be able to pick this up. So inside that set, you're going to get the Warriors of Minas Tirith and the Rangers of Minas Tirith alongside the new character models as well. So you've got Faramir, Damrod, and Madril. Boom, I remembered. Alongside Gothmog, which comes on foot and mounted, alongside the Morannon Orcs and the Armored Troll as well, which is very cool.
Very cool.
You also get the updated rulebook, which is not a new edition of the game. That should be stated. I'm not certainly getting rid of my old book because I don't need to. So it's just been updated with FAQ and errata. So it's not a new edition of the game. The mechanics are still the same, basically. You also get dice, tokens, a scenario book allowing you to play with the model straight away, and also that new Minas Tirith Gondor terrain that you see there as well. So that's 2 of the modular sets that they're bringing out. So that's an indication that they're going to be bringing out these sets separately later on anyway. So don't worry about that. This is another of the terrain sets they're going to be bringing out, which we'll come back to in a second. So don't worry about that. This is a different one, Jerry.
Yeah. No, but it's a nice big picture.
It is a nice big picture, yeah.
It is.
But yes, so on top of Battle of Osgiliath, they're also going to be releasing the battle hosts, which are going to be available on a normal pre-order. So these will be available to pre-order this weekend and then available to buy from next weekend. Okay. However, US and Canada may have some issues with 2 of the boxes. I can't remember which one it is, but bear that in mind if you're living across the pond. But you'll be able to pick up battle hosts for Rohan, Isengard, Minas Tirith, and Mordor. They will come with some of the newer plastic characters. So Éomer, Saruman, Grima, all that kind of stuff, alongside the older plastic kits. Additionally, and this was released this week, so you can go and find it on Warcom at the moment, the Warhammer community website. There are free rules for the basics of the Lord of the Rings, of the Middle-earth strategy battle game. So you'll be able to go and pick those up, which are totally free. And it walks you through all of the basics of the game. It's very well done. It's very nice. Again, another free set of rules from Games Workshop. What the hell is going on? Alongside all of the profiles, not the points, obviously, for using all of the models that you get within those battle hosts. So you can buy a battle host, download the PDF rules, download the profiles for your characters, and you'll be good to play straight out of the boxes with these models without having to buy any massive rule books that cost about £30 each. So, that's a pretty big investment.
Wow.
Whereas you could just buy one of these and away you go, which I think is very, very cool. In addition to the battle hosts, sorry, Frank, go.
I was going to say, I just feel really sorry for the people that have to hand draw that many white trees of Gondor. There must be some. There must be some
sculpted onto the shield.
Don't worry.
Sculpted on. But because the models are quite old, they're not the easiest to paint, as my friend will attest to. But there we go.
Yeah.
In addition to the battle hosts, there's also the terrain that we were looking at a second ago. So those are the old Ruins of Middle Earth terrain pieces that are going to be made available once more. So you'll be able to pick those up if you want to add them to your Osgiliath terrain, for example, or if you wanted to use it to represent any of the ruins within the realms of Middle Earth. So you just bring that all together, which I think is quite nice. We're also getting the plastic kit for Elrond, Master of Rivendell, who comes
Hobbits are a virus.
It's very Hugo Weaving, isn't it? Yeah, it's undisputably Hugo Weaving.
Yeah. So you'll get Elrond on foot and Elrond mounted in very much the kind of Last Alliance get-up as well, which is very cool. I wonder why they've done that. And also that Elven Standard Bearer as well, which you can throw into your games. Again, it's I suppose they were like, we've got some room on the sprue. Let's throw in an elf. So yes, hopefully that's an indication of things that are about to come, but we shall see. But yes, there's also a couple of fancy dice sets, but we don't really look at those, I suppose. But there we go.
Fancy dice.
got some new Elven dice and some
dice.
new Men of Dale dice as well, which are probably going to go like hotcakes once the pre-orders begin.
Dick Dale and the Dale Tones.
There we go.
Yeah, those.
Those Men of Dale.
Yeah.
So yes,
big release, GW, that one.
Just to reiterate, Battle of Osgiliath, pre-orders begin this weekend up until the end of September on the 26th. You will not get it after that point. Like a week after, you'll have to wait probably until Christmas to get your hands on the box, but you will get it. And it's not just limited to Games Workshop, so you can get it from us if you want to. In addition to that, all of those battle hosts and Elrond and everything else will be available on a normal pre-order schedule, so you get it the week after. Boom, boom, boom. Bish, bish, bosh. There we go. So yes, an amazing time for Middle-earth, alongside Rings of Power. Yay!
There you go. It's a very fantasy-centric episode this week.
It was. Yeah, it was.
Really weirdly, there's just so much like fantasy at the moment. I've been trawling through Kickstarter over the last couple of weeks, and so many projects are all fantasy-based. I think everyone is totally in the fantasy mood, because you are right, Jerry. Fantasy is the best. And I will not hear anyone say different.
Ignore the pod behind me. Ignore that. Fantasy is the best.
Ignore that, yes.
We live in a fantasy world. Right. We're going to take a quick swish, and when we come back, we'll be checking out some Kickstarters and 3D prints. All right, we're back, and we're going to dive into some 3D printing.
I heard it was the shiz, Meg.
All right, is that what it is?
Yeah, it is.
So close. So close.
Easily confused, I think. Yeah.
What we got today? What's going on in 3D printing?
So this one's a little bit of a small one, but it was one that just sort of popped up as I was browsing through my mini factory, and I'm looking at some of the different tribes that are up. So this is Witchsong Miniatures. And I wanted to highlight these because I'm a big fan of were creatures, as we found out at the beginning of the show. But I also wanted to bring these up because I just think the sculpts are amazing anyway. So they haven't been going for that long in terms of their sort of collection and stuff. They do have tribes, obviously, so you can pledge for a section of monthly miniatures and all that kind of stuff as well. But they've been working on this sort of Fury of the Deep and sort of Lords of the Forest, the Woodlands, Wilderness feel at the same time at the moment. So there's a whole range of very, very cool miniatures in here and busts, as you can see, that have been designed so that you could use them as sort of the forces of nature, if we were to use an army list from Kings of War, perhaps, on the tabletop, which I think is really good. One thing that's really nice about them, I think, is that it feels like they've gone for kind of nailing the nature vibe, but as if imagine a xenomorph was made of wood.
Yes.
Which I think is a fairly accurate representation.
Biological threat, as it were.
Yeah. Forget the chitin, the kitten, and instead replace it with wood and bark and all that good stuff. Instead, they've got corrosive sap instead. Maybe.
Very cool.
This one's wearing that face mask from Street Fighter.
It's very owl-like, isn't it?
That's it. Vegas mask.
I just remember.
You ruined my face, my beautiful face. But yeah. I mean, yes, if you open up those particular ones, you'll see a look at some of the very cool miniatures that they've been working on that could be used on a sort of a wargaming scale. I think it's quite nice. Say you're looking to put together some very cool nature-based, druidic, wilderness-styled cavalry, I think you have some good options there. Maybe that's what Rudolph does when he's not
during the off-season.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like running something like a night list for the Order of the Green Lady, and instead of just having a load of paladin-looking French knights kicking around, actually having some of these nutters on elk. Rawr.
And as I say, like the connections are not particularly big at the moment. But I think it's full of some very nice miniatures and stuff that I think would be really fun to dive into and add into your games. I say one of the big things with a lot of this stuff is that you want to try and use it as alternatives for things that exist out there on the tabletop. So, as Jerry was saying there, using it in Kings of War for all sorts of different reasons would be a great way of doing it. Whereas maybe if you're putting together very interesting sort of encounters for role-playing games. You could always go down the route of using these as the Fey creatures that you run into when you're going through the Feywild or something. Maybe you run into these characters who think you're interlopers, and so you have to kind of convince them that you're not, or you could just kill them if you're a murder hobo party. But
that also works.
Yeah. The other thing that's really nice about these is obviously you've got the very nice miniatures, but I think the bases are really nice as well. They may be a little bit extra for those people who want to put together like a lot of different armies, but I like that they've got the sculpted detail onto them as well. Because I know for one that when it comes to the end of a miniature painting project, you know that you've only got the very simple task of rimming the base. But with these, you've actually got to put effort into them. Oh, God, I can't do that. Unless you just sort of slap some gold on. Well, there you go.
You can always drop the layer height.
See, you could always drop it. Yeah, just have it as the sculpted base of the mini, and then just sandwich onto an all base.
Stick onto something else.
Or make them epic plinths. So
they'd also they'd also work well as demons.
They would actually. Yeah, you could easily run them
like Rain in Hell, or one of those skirmish games where you need like small amounts of wandering band of creatures.
As much as they're very woodland, I think covered in snow as well would look gorgeous.
Yeah, I could see that, nice. Like raiders in the snows up in the north.
Because they've got a lot of furs, a lot of horns and stuff like that. Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah. You can actually see that there's the full character miniatures. Also, there's the Lady of the Grove and the Lord of the Grove, which I think are stunning. So obviously we saw them in bust form before, but this kind of gives you that look of, your leader characters.
Wow.
And as you can see, they're massive.
He's a big boy.
So yeah, you can see a regular old sort of D&D style miniatures next to them compared to the cavalry and then the lords themselves. Maybe you run a Sylvaneth force or something appropriate to that in a game like Age of Fantasy or something, and you use those as your tree men potentially instead. So you have tree men leaders, a little bit like Durthu for the Sylvaneth and the Wood Elves, but have them as massive, huge cray features. I'm thinking about fish as all gangsters, as a massive like fey creatures, sort of like lording it over everybody on the tabletop. I think that's just an amazing pose as well. And I think that's like a sword dug into the sword.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder what's, well, it could be her own sword.
She put it down to hold the bird.
Exactly. She's got major anime energy and she can carry massive swords.
Well, I immediately defaulted to that's something that she's killed up.
Yes, maybe with her bow. Yeah.
Behind that is just something massive. But it's interesting to see what's going to be coming next because say there's not a huge amount in here, but some of the other pieces are probably going to give.
So Lioran is the Lord of the Lion. He's pretty cool, and the Sunlight Seraph, which we've opened there. But I think the Seraph, the chap on the end, is one of the ones that was in the last tribes, I think. So they'll be moving on to new stuff as well in the future. But just amazing miniatures that I think would be fun to paint as well as use them in an army. If you're looking for just nice display models, go for it.
I was trying to work out his legs there, see where they were.
He's like standing on the edge of the anchor, and then I can't see where the other one is.
The other one's somewhere in the back, and there's
beneath his tail. That is a Shockerosaurus. If you wanted to go down into the annals of Beasts of War history there. So,
right, just running it as a depth horror.
Could also be a Orokea if you were planning to go down the darkness route, but there we go. Yeah, and I think that's the kind of one of the newer miniatures they've done for it, which I think is really nice. Going down that kind of lizard man vibe.
Yeah. Or Naga.
A Naga vibe, Naga. If you were, I was trying to think of the name from World of Warcraft, and I was like, lizard man. But But I really like that that's a model that isn't necessarily tied to a genre. Like I could see that as being both a sci-fi model and a fantasy model because you just paint the blades differently and stuff.
I was thinking the same thing. The armor is very sort of Mass Effect-y sci-fi.
Yeah.
You can see something coming scuttling out of the place and they have to be repeatedly shot in the face for its troubles.
The lines on the armor could be neon.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, go full Tron. He fights for the users. Because if I don't,
he's glorious, isn't he?
It's a heck of a centaur.
Like I love the idea of maybe I'm going to keep using Kings of War because it's an amazing game. But imagine that at the head of a Basilean army, and instead of it being like some kind of saintly fellow, you have this chap.
Yeah, because Naeus kicks around the place on a massive line anyway, so just replace the tiny human with a massive club stamping fella. It's the way to do it.
Stunning. And I love that he's got the 2 hammers that I feel like that's his upgraded weapons. And then the weapons that he started with when he was like level 3 are the the moon blades.
Warcraft, aren't you?
Yes.
Is that Klopesh at the side that he's got either side? Nice.
Yeah.
Glorious.
Very nice.
That's a fascinating little...
But small but bijou, as you often say, Jerry.
Compact and bijou, Austin.
Compact and bijou.
But because there are another couple of busts before we...
So if you're going down the kind of Dark Soulsy route, maybe the Elden Ring route,
the Faceless King.
Models as well.
And that is, again, another creepy deluxe.
What's quite nice about this kind of stuff as well is that you can...
It's nice.
It's a whole crypt.
You can often either get these stuff through their My Mini Factory page as well, but if you're not someone who has the ability to print yourself, a lot of these people will have sellers on Etsy and all that kind of thing as well. So if you like the look of those and you don't have the access to an STL printer, maybe go and see if you can find a supporting Etsy 3D printer or something like that and get your stuff that way. Very cool.
Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days.
Fantastic stuff.
Nice.
Right. Rounding off the show then, as always, we're going to take a look at a couple of Kickstarter campaigns.
Yeah.
And first up, we're revisiting more fantasy.
More fantasy, you say?
More fantasy, classic fantasy. Fantasy that everybody knows, even if you don't know, you know.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Everybody knows Elric.
Elric.
Yeah. Responsible for so many spin-offs.
Yes. And a lot of role-play characters from the last couple of decades.
Well, even last week, when we looked at Dragonbane, there's
That's basically Elric on the front.
Elric fellow on the front. And and he's not alone. So what is this Kickstarter then?
So this is Elric, Rise of the Young Kingdom, which comes from the folks at Le Département. This is a reboot of their Kickstarter because they've come back this time with a whole bunch of new information and gameplay guides and rules and all that kind of stuff to kind of make it a lot easier for people who are diving in that aren't French, basically, which I think is quite nice. This is also an official game, so it's proper licensed property, as you might imagine, by the fact that it's got Elric in the title. But yes.
And Michael Moorcock further down the page as well.
So this, as you playing as the leaders of the Young Kingdoms as they look to sack the city alongside Elric. Now, obviously, Elric has his own sort of reasons for attacking the city. He really doesn't like his cousin, as you all know if you've read any of the books. Or
there's not many, so you should.
Well, that's true, yeah. I mean, he very much likes one of his cousins, but then doesn't like the other one. Let's just put it like that, and you can go and find out for yourself.
No more spoilers.
But yes, you're going to be playing as the different leaders of the Young Kingdoms that will take on control of armies and characters and all that kind of thing. And the focus is that you're going to be charging into the city and trying to ransack the different levels. So you'll start at the bottom and you'll fight through and you'll loot cards and fight enemies and fight against the defenses that are raised by the king and all that kind of stuff. And then you will push through onto the next level and then finally into the heart of the palace itself to defeat Yirkun and his dragons and all that kind of stuff as well, which is really cool. The game in that regard is something of a semi-cooperative experience in a way, because there's no sort of player taking on the role of the villain. The game
there's no
is
antagonist.
The villain. And so you have to push through into the palace and you have to ransack it to win the game. Now, you're not going to be able to do that by yourself, even with the help of Elric on your side, because Elric's amazing. But you will have to work together in order to take down certain things, and you can barter and you can bid and you can bargain to try and work out what loot people will take from a certain scenario and a certain fight in order for you to destroy certain regions and burn them to the ground. And it's a big dragon. There you go. About dragons. But yeah. So semi-cooperative in that nature, but in essence, the person who's going to come out on top is the person who's managed to gain the most loot from their attacks on the palace. Gameplay is a very interesting mix of sort of card play and dice at the same time, and sort of like pushing your luck in a certain degree as well. So you'll force yourself into different areas of the map, and you'll just be attacking certain towers, as you've seen replicated by the little tiny hexes on the circles on the hex maps and stuff. And when you get to those, that'll dictate the kind of encounter that you dive into. You'll draw cards from a set and you'll work out what you'll be fighting against. And then you'll either pull together your own forces or those from your friends around the table, and then you'll roll a dice, and there's got some really awesome things like exploding dice in there. So if it gets to 6, you get to roll again and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's got that kind of awesome moving models and rolling dice kind of feel to it. But also it's got the tactical edge with the card play where you can kind of use that to make up for the sort of your bad luck and all that kind of stuff as well, which I think is really nice. As Elric is obviously part of the game as well, he won't just fight for one kingdom, he'll fight for a lot of them, and you can use cards to bid for control of him, and then he'll give certain bonuses to combat. Additionally, Elric can't die, because obviously he's Elric of Melniborn. Melniborne, apparently, as I've been told. It's Melniborne, not Melniborne.
Ranks up there with Mierce.
Yes.
You can tell us all you want.
I was watching Becca Scott do her gameplay video, and he was like, "Come to the city of Melniborne," and I was like, "Okay, I don't think that's how, but maybe, I don't know." But yeah, that's probably how it is sent, because obviously this is an officially licensed game. But there we go. I'm just going to keep saying Melniborne. But yes, so you can get him on your side, and you can use him to fight your enemies and all that kind of stuff as well. The actual game itself comes with a bunch of plastic components to represent all the different forces that you'll be using to try and take over the palace. You'll have a miniature for Elric, which is pretty big and massive compared to the rest of them. You've also got a dragon and Yirkun as well in the mix too. With stretch goals and all that kind of stuff as well, they're going to be throwing a bunch of extra bits and pieces in there too. So if you wanted to dive in, start to add things like another expansion, new companions and all that kind of stuff, you can do that as well. And you can have a lot of fun with this. I think if you're an Elric fan, you're probably going to want to dive in on this one. I think they kind of nailed that look of Elric that a lot of people have seen from covers and graphic novels and that kind of thing as well. And even if you don't use the models for this game, you might find a lot of people using this to kind of put together interesting Elric-themed armies on the table.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite nice. Obviously, another thing is I forgot to mention, all the different kingdoms have different powers and different abilities as well. So there's that asymmetrical nature at the same time, which I think is amazing. And it means that you'll always be coming to the tabletop with something different that you need to achieve. And because of the fact that the encounters that you get to when you come to the towers is always different every time because of the card deck, you've got all that as well. So this one seems like it's got a lot of replay value. And it definitely seems like the folks at Le Dépendant have actually come together to create a very interesting sort of revamp of the game for Kickstarter. And it's doing pretty well at the moment. So then, yeah.
I also like the fact that some of the Kickstarter exclusives are, I wouldn't even say quality of life, just nice little things like a soundtrack. So you can have your own.
You can have Elric
soundtrack playing when you're playing your games.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things, if you're not going to back the Kickstarter and you're just going to pick it up at retail, you're not missing out on vital components or a whole other expansion, whatever it is. There's bits and pieces in there like other sculpts, but being able to just sort of grab the game at retail is going to be more or less what you could pick up at Kickstarter is good. And if you want to get the extra few bits and pieces, you can do this thing. Where are we? Oh, we passed them already, have we? I'm sure Michael was on here somewhere. Oh, it's on Tabletop as well. There we go. There's Michael. Look at him. Looking awesomely young, as always. I was thinking suspicion. That may be an old photo by now, though.
Maybe.
But yeah.
I'll also say, if you are interested in this, or if you've never heard of Elric, definitely go and read the books, or at least check out the Titan Comics graphic novels, which are very, very well done. I got a bunch of them for very cheap on the old Kindle, and they're very good to read and all that kind of stuff. Really fun, really good dark fantasy, and also high fantasy elements all mixed together. Some very nice twists and turns if you like a bit of Game of Thrones and all that kind of stuff as well. So
yeah, and as you read them, you just make a little note beside you of who's ripped who off over the years. You just go, oh, that's where that character came from. Oh, I see where this is going. That being said, it's all cyclical.
Yeah, it's not quite funded yet. The campaign is just about off. I'd say it's about 80% done or something.
So it might be by the time you guys are looking at it.
It's got 20-ish days left on the campaign.
Okay.
21 days left.
21 days left, yeah.
So,
there you go.
Cool.
Fascinating stuff. And sticking with it's very high fantasy concepts.
Is it still fantasy? Who knows? No, it's technically not. It's like alternative history with diesel punk sprinkled into it. But yeah. So Rivet Wars has returned. So there's been loads of updates and teases over the last couple of weeks coming from Steamforged. And we have been given a massive campaign over on Kickstarter that's got loads of goodies and new features for the complete resurrection of Rivet Wars. So if you're new to the game, as I said, it's pitched as a World War I history miniatures board game with a bit of spice of diesel punk as well. You're going to have machines, as you can see. So we've got a new faction, updated game, new expansions, old expansions, updates to components, new art style, and just a modern place for people to jump in. So it is picked for 1 to 4 players, and each players are going to be going out into the battlefield, as you saw, in kind of a tactical setup, and you're going to be controlling units on the table and being one step ahead of your opponent's strategy. So you're going to be putting off, as you can see, units for land and air. You're going to be hoping to deal copious amount of damage with the special weaponry that you can see in front of you, and you're going to be upgrading the more you progress. There is a big, giant, mechy spring for all the fun. You'll see it when it comes up. And it's there's I'd say the game plays over about a 25 to 60 minute game. So it depends on how many people you have involved. So you're going to need to be equipped for long-term planning, adapting to your opponent's methods, and ultimately to meet objectives and rake in victory points. So as you can see, there is quite a few. A little tiny Viking. So you're going to be heading into the world of Rivet, and it's an industrialized alternative reality. And it favours the world of the machine, as you can see. So you're going to get like epic mechanical weaponry and commanding each side where you go. So there's different ways that this game can be played. You can go in a competitive way, you can go in a cooperative way, or you can play solo. So in the core box, you're going to find the original 2 factions. See, giant springy thing.
I love things that plug into things.
I told you it'd be back.
It's satisfying.
The 2 that you see there, you've got the Allies and the Blight, so they're going to be returning. They've got enhanced miniatures, updates to the card, and there's still some models to be showcased yet. There is a lot of exclusive content available on this campaign as well. So, and it's not going to be going to retail. So you've got, as you saw, the general discount that's going to be coming anyway if you do purchase it early. You've got the Viking that you just saw called Gunnar Hammerson. He's going to be added to all pledges if you pitch in. There is a new faction called the Nemoans. Remember, it's like Jason Momoa. And it's only available part of the all-in pledge. And onwards, as well as the veteran. So there is additional component terrain available as upgrade packs, and that's part of the deluxe as well. So they're adding more and more unlocks each day to the cards, just so you can cross faction the 2 and use them on both sides. So there is a few pledges that you can buy into, to say the least. There is a few. If you do want to just get the core game, the core box, the pledge do start at roughly £130. You get the core box, the Vanguard expansion, and all of the unlocked stuff.
Wow. Crikey.
So, yeah.
Blimey, Charlie, yeah.
Big campaign. And then you go all the way up to the deluxe page, which adds the whole haul of expansions, both new and old, terrain, upgrades, unlocks, and truly everything to kit you out for £388. Nice. If you have played Rivet Wars before and you don't want to buy all the new content at the start fresh, there is a veterans pledge as well for £121.
Just some updated bits and pieces.
With your updated bit, you get your Nemoans as well, and you can add in. So you get your new faction if you do want to dip in there. So it's a really, really, really short campaign. but it blew up as soon as it went up, really. I think it's something like 300% funded at the moment. So the rules are available as part of the campaign on here at the moment. So if you do want to look deeper into more of your game styles, so like if you go into solo and you want to see how that works, or competitive and how they change over, you can download it. But it is chock-a-block full of stuff, this campaign. I did try and wrap it up as best as I can to give you the brief.
No, congrats, you well done for keeping it as brief as you did, because we're about halfway down. We've only just hit the flyers at this point.
I think what's quite nice about this, though, is that even though they've said that they're going to do these certain Kickstarter exclusives and all that kind of thing, I think when we talked about this during a news story a couple of weeks ago, you were talking about the fact that the designer is very up for this continuing. So this isn't, obviously there are Kickstarter exclusives here, but I would imagine that they will have a lot of that core stuff out there for everyone to dive into and pick up at retail later on down the line. Obviously, this is cheaper to get it on the Kickstarter, of course, but you're not going to see the end of Rivet Wars, and hopefully we'll see some expansion material coming out in the near future as well. So that'll be really nice. But
it is indeed. But all of the units have been updated as well. The miniatures have been enhanced. They look really sweet.
It looks very much like very diesel punky, steampunky Memoir 44, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So, yeah.
But I'd love to see some people paint these up. You'd have quite a bit to paint through. But I think awesome.
I have a feeling that Gunnar Hammerson is a teaser of what they're probably going to do next.
Do you know what it could be?
I think he's going to be one of the people in a fantasy faction, because they're going to have some Vikings versus Orcs or something.
Well, he's the only purple one, isn't he? So he could be having a purple faction incoming. But good to see the revival and be interesting.
Big brain on Ben.
Check it out.
It's going to be totally wrong.
Predictions.
7 days left on that if you want to get into Rivet Wars Reloaded.
I'll see you 7.
I think that does us for another week. We're all staffed now. We've all got to.
Are you happy with your fantasy? Did you like your fantasy? I bought you some fantasy. You don't. We have fantasy at home. Okay.
And Free's got to pull herself together for.
I've got to say goodbye. Bye. I'm going to thank you, everybody. Thank you for the relentless people that fought to get me in the credits. That was amazing. And Pascal says
change the credits.
See how long it takes Lloyd to remember he has to change them now whenever Free goes.
I've had an amazing time on the Weekender, guys, and as I said, I am absolutely gutted to be leaving. Everybody in the comments, everybody who watches has been unbelievable. And don't worry, I won't disappear. You'll see me in the comments every so often. But as I said, maybe I'll be.
To finish for
I do. I've got products to finish, and I've got Let's Plays to watch. Certainly to get Shay more involved as well. Just to try and
very true. Very true. It's been an absolute pleasure spending our weekends with you over the past few months. I say a few months, almost a year.
I think it's over a year now.
Even longer than that now, I think.
A year and a half, I think, yeah.
Time flies.
We're going to miss you, Free.
Yeah. And we're going to miss Pascal on the occasional meows into the microphone. While
great.
destroying your blind.
He's sitting right on it. So, these blinds are a mess. I don't know if you can see, but they're great.
It's been well. You're not getting your deposit back on that one, are you?
They didn't take pictures. It's all fine. It's just a hole through the middle,
Right. There you go, folks. We are going to leave it at that for another week. We will return next Friday without Free. God, we're going to have to wrangle one of the other ones in. Don't know what we're going to do. If you want to say goodbye to her properly, she will return on Sunday for the XLBS over on tabletop.com. If you're not already
find the links below.
Cult of Games, then you can join us on a 30-day trial and see the last ever showing of Free. I say that we've probably filmed some Let's Plays that haven't got out yet, actually. So Free may return.
There is
Banjo Kazooie across the universe. But until next time, folks, have a great week of gaming. And don't forget, if you want that Spanish copy of Ammo, stick it in the comments.
Spanish. Or write it in Spanish, even better.
Yeah, don't do that because I won't be able to pick that out. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.